Welcome. My name is Brenda Lanoff of my internet group called brendalanoff.com. That's with one F.com. Various Facebook groups you're welcome to check in. Healing Healers Health and Business, Healing Healers Pathogenics, and Light Language, formerly called Practice Light Language. So welcome into this call today. And I was really excited about doing this with Donalie Caldwell. I've known Donalie for many years. In fact, I interviewed Donalie. I think I interviewed you, I'm thinking about 7-8 years ago. I really didn't know about light language. But anyways, we're going to get into that today and have Donalie explain how she got involved in this. But I want to give some background information about Donalie. So Donalie is in British Columbia, Canada. She has 40 years of nursing. She encompassing all modalities, including psychiatry, oncology, and teaching the community service worker program. For the last 30 years, she studied metaphysics and worked with complementary health as an intuitive energy healer, animal healing, nutritional counseling, muscle testing and dowsing, emotional release, herbology, and body work. In 2015, Donalie attended the Oneness University in India, where she was awakened. 6 months later, Donalie attended, sorry, just got an interruption here. She attended a Star Lodge ceremony where Donalie connected to the star beings. And 6 months after that, spontaneously began channeling light language in 2016. So it's her belief that humanity was originally formed from parts of the DNA from various star beings. They have vested interest in the advancement of humanity and have come forward at this time to help facilitate that, and we certainly need their help. After much research, working with light language and urgings from people, Donalie's put together a course for those gifted with channeling light language to teach how to apply this amazing gift. This is truly a new tool to be used in the creation of a new world. So welcome, Donalie.
Thank you. Thank you, Brenda.
Okay, let's talk about light language. And, after you began channeling in 2016, I know for myself, it was just a very strange sensation as I was talking to my dog and going, Lord, I don't want anybody to hear me because I think I'm going crazy. So tell me, what was your first experience speaking light language?
Well, I've been listening to several people who spoke light language. And so one day I was listening again, and she had just finished channeling and started to speak in English. And I felt this huge wave of energy come into my body. And it felt like there was something stuck in my throat. And so I grabbed my pendulum and tested first who was coming in to be sure that whatever spirit was coming in was safe. And once I got the okay for that, I asked, so what do I do now? Just open my mouth and start talking. So I knew what was happening. And I got a yes, and it just flowed out of my mouth, and I chattered away like a chipmunk for about 15 minutes. And I thought, wow, I can't believe what just happened here.
That's funny, and you really feel like, well, you might feel like you're losing your mind.
Well, I had, because I'd been listening to several months to various people doing this, it immediately resonated with me. I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever come across. So I wasn't frightened, but I was very surprised because I wasn't expecting it to happen to me.
Before we continue with that, I'm curious with Donalie as to what your first experience was. So Jill, what was your first experience with light language?
I would say mine was pretty similar in that I had been listening to Judy Satori religiously. I loved her. discovered her about 10 or 11 years ago, and she actually had a light language activation module, so to speak, that you could purchase off of Darius or one of the telesummits. And I was listening to that, and I just started mumbling stuff, and I was like, I'm making this up. This isn't really, true
Right.
light language coming through. I'm just making it up. So as you and Donalie know, I doubted myself for a very long time before I actually really believed that it was light language. So kind of similar.
Right.
I don't know. At other times too, I was humming a little bit, and I started to feel like it was making syllabic sounds, if that is such a word. And just trying to go with it, but still having that doubt. I needed to get out of my head. Finally, what happened for me was when my hands started moving and I was watching them. I wasn't paying attention to what was coming through here, and I realized, oh, I'm doing it without thinking about it. So it must be the real deal, And plus, you feel the energy of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Cool.
I did have doubts, when I first started as well. And so I'd think in my head, well, let's see if we can make this sound or that sound. And it didn't happen. It just wasn't coming out of my mouth. So I realized it had to be genuine. And it wanted to come through all the time. So whenever I was walking, driving the car, it was coming out of my mouth. I had no idea what it meant, what they were working on. But I just intuitively trusted what was coming through.
I could just quickly share my story. I had been back and forth from Arizona to Alberta numerous times, as we did have a place many years ago down in Scottsdale. So back and forth, and our dog was really towards the end of her life, and our property that we had at that time was backing on to a native reserve. So I felt the energies were very, very strong. And I really believe that helped open me up. So I was on the porch with our dog that was elderly and was towards the end of her life. And all of a sudden these sounds were coming through. I thought, oh Lord, I don't know what it is, but I've been doing energy work for many years. And I knew it was something there, but I couldn't talk about it. Who am I going to talk to about this? Felt very, very native, which is what I tend to pull in. And because here I'm backing on native reserve. So of course, that 2 and 2. So that for me was like the beginning. And then when I really stepped in was when 2 major surgeries, when I didn't know if I was going to make it. So it's just like, and then my mom came through and she was like, it's going to be okay. You're going to make it. Just settle down. She was giving me shit. Just, you're going to be just fine. And I was calm as can be. And that prepared me for that last surgery. So it's very cool. And Donalie, I have to thank you, because if it wasn't for stepping in, and Jill and I both stepped in on your course that you taught, and where we could really share it, I wouldn't have had the confidence to do that. And therefore I created the Light Language group, Facebook group years ago. So let's get into the light language, Donalie. And now I know you don't teach how to speak it, but how to apply it. So tell us about the course and what it entails.
The course is broken down into 3 modules. So there's an emotional module, a physical module, and a spiritual module. Each module has its own individual index, and each module is quite different from the rest. So with the emotional, there's a lot of different protocols, procedures to use. With the physical, I've got it broken down into specific areas of the body, or, there's a whole section on pathogens, that sort of thing. And each item that I'm talking about has a list. It's like a checklist to go through. So when I'd have identified what an issue is, you can go to the list and then determine what needs to be worked on. So you're not going to need the entire list at any time for a particular item, but there will be something, it should be something in that list somewhere. And so I try to make the list as thorough as possible. And I do get into a lot of detail, anatomically as well as energetically.
What
so if you think of that physical module, it's a manual. And so you just go in and I've got a chart in there that you can use to find what the parts of the body that have issues are. And so I have you determine what the light score is for each area of the body. And so you can determine then, when you've developed all these percentages, obviously the lowest percentage is going to be your top priority, but you can also ask what the top priority is. So I use a pendulum for asking. If you can use your intuition if you have that available, or you can do muscle testing. So everything I do, I confirm with the pendulum or muscle testing. But your intuition works too. I don't believe I have that level of intuition to be able to trust it at this point in time. So I do rely on my pendulum the most.
Right. And I would imagine that most people, if they don't muscle test or use a pendulum, they maybe really don't have to. They can just work their way through, or they could probably learn how to do that if, maybe by doing a one-to-one session with you as well, because it's a phenomenal tool. So you don't have to have it, but it's a great tool to be able to use that for every single day for most anything.
When I send out the course, I
Mhm.
send a preparation sheet, and that has links to YouTube to learn how to use a pendulum and muscle test.
Oh, perfect. And you have
I also
also
talk about how to connect with spirit, and you need to know who is coming through, because you don't want to have any dark spirits in there. You need to be completely working with the light.
And I know
so
when-
I give you, I've listed a number of my spirit helpers in that preparation. So it gives you something to question. So you can ask, who needs to work with you? My team has grown exponentially since the early days.
Well, it is like you provide so much material, Donalie. I'm just like amazed at the diligence and the thought that you put into it. Here's an update to the physical. And I know from just knowing you all these years, you were listening to podcasts, and then with your background as a nurse of 40 years, of course, you got this major piece that, most of us don't have as non-medical people. So I have to tell you guys, the amount of information she sends out, and then you can literally just ask, should I, is suggested, pendulum or muscle testing, would this be applicable? Do I need to go here? Or, what is the light score? So it's so much information. It's great that you can provide all of that. Now, you also provide some course materials, and I guess that's what you were talking about, was links to learn to muscle testing and dowsing, information for energy balancing and grounding, healing permission, and instructing of the Akash. So that's awesome.
Yes, and once you get into the modules, I do have quite a number of charts as well that I send out that go with particular modules. So there's a lot of charts for the emotional module, and there's a few for the physical as well. And
I know.
in the physical module, I also include a picture of that area of the body. So it gives you some idea with what you're working with. If you're not familiar with anatomy like I am.
Right. And I know for myself, when I receive your updates, so when you give the updated the physical emotional, I like to print them off, and then I have them on my Dropbox just so I have access to both. I like the physical paper, like this is something I like to work with, as you know, so you can, have it in two different areas. Okay, you know what? I like to hear a couple of really great examples of how you're working with light language. Now, you had mentioned earlier when we had our private call that you worked on a horse. That was one of your big areas, like working with animals. And I know you love animals. I know you love to work with them, but give us the story about the horse.
Back then, I was going to a restaurant weekly to have dinner, and that restaurant was located on the same property as a stables. And so after dinner, we'd go over to the stables, and we'd always bring a bag of carrots with us, and we'd feed carrots to the horses. And so I noticed in the end stall, this one horse, she had the most beautiful disposition, was so friendly, but she was constantly gnashing her teeth and very restless. And I knew there was something very wrong. So I waited several weeks so that she had a chance to get to know me. And then I did some light language for her.
Mm.
And
Cool.
when I was channeling for her, I looked down the stable. So there's two rows, on either side of the corridor were stalls of horses. And I looked up, and every single horse had their head over the gate with their eyes riveted to me. And the horse I was working on, she didn't know what on earth to make of it. She would watch me for a while, and then she'd move away from me. I was with a friend, so she'd go and stand over by my friend. And then she'd come back, but she couldn't stay away from me. She kept coming back and then leaving and coming back. But when I finished, she was no longer gnashing her teeth and was no longer restless. And I saw her on numerous occasions after that, and it held.
I love stories like that. I know our dog transitioned almost a year ago. And just before she transitioned, probably within a day or two, I just opened up, and I just felt like she could hear this at a soul level. And I was just like communicating with her and just saying my goodbyes. And it's so beautiful to be working with animals. So that's an awesome example, Donalie, of how working with this horse and how she responded. And I know you've got probably many stories about working with animals, but I want to hear also about your neighbor. You talked about your neighbor. I want to hear the story about the neighbor.
Well, my next door neighbor is in her 90s. And I've done a fair bit of work on her over the years. Anyway, she had developed what felt like a bladder infection. So she had urgency. She was experiencing some pain, but she also had pain in her hands and arms, which is not typical of a bladder infection. And I kept testing. She did not have a bladder infection. So I did work on her energetically, but it didn't hold. And well, something is wrong here. And then I remembered years ago, I was always having bladder infections, just one after another. And I had gone to a seminar, and in the seminar, they talked about interstitial cystitis. That means that the infection is actually in the tissue of the bladder. And so it doesn't show up in the urine. I'll bet that's what she has. And I tested, and sure enough. So I worked on her for the infection that was in the tissues of the bladder. In fact, she came over last night, Brenda, to thank me again.
Oh,
She was
that's
so
awesome.
thrilled. All the pain is completely gone.
Oh, and considering our healthcare system is deteriorating, and I don't think it's just in Canada, I think, by doing what we're doing with the light language and, anything else that we can pull in is really going to be extremely beneficial in the upcoming times. But what is the intentional energy healing? What do you mean by that?
When I started out, I only did light language with this course, but as time has gone on, the frequencies on the planet have escalated so much that we don't need the light language as much as we did before. So much of the work now in my course can't be done by intention. And so I just, I talk to spirit, I tell spirit what I want. I give them my to-do list. Here's what I want you to do for this client. And I use a pendulum while everything is processing. And that way I can track the processing and I can see when it's finished, because the pendulum will stop spinning when the process is done. So I'm working in the same way. Like before, I was telling spirit, I was giving them my to-do list, and then I would just channel the language. Now I just, I'm telling them what I want done, and I use my pendulum.
Yeah.
And that just sets it all in motion. So either way works.
Right. There is no right or wrong
There
way.
are some things in the course where it really does need light language. It just needs that extra boost, that higher frequency. But for the most part, it can now be done by intention.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. And
But, if you want to use light language for everything, go ahead. There's nothing wrong with that.
right. And
For those who are not clear on light language, the language is not intended to be understood. It's all about frequency. Now, there are a few people who actually do understand it. I've had a few people tell me, oh, I understand everything you said. I don't understand it, but it doesn't matter. It's the frequency and the work that it does.
Right. Don't you find the light language as it bypasses the brain is more like to the soul?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. It
Yeah.
totally bypasses the brain. So it's pure spirit that is coming through.
Yeah, it's like a lot of the other teachings that we have, having a heart wall. What's the brain? Is it the brain, or is the heart the brain? Like what comes first? So yeah, interesting.
Unless you're working on the brain.
Yes, yes. Okay, well, let's just open it up for questions, and then we'll get into towards the end of this as to the course and what people can expect, for the price of the course and whatever. So let's open it up, and anybody wants to ask questions for Donalie, please go ahead.
Well, I have a question. Hi, Donalie. I'm Diane. Hi. I do written because I feel what Brenda was just saying. My mouth gets confused a lot. I'm a yoga therapist. I do speak to people, but when it comes in, it's all in my art. And I work with the chakras because I'm trained as a holistic health and wellness. I've been doing yoga and wellness and alkalinity for 22 years. So like you, I'm starting to combine things. And well, how would you see applying the written to something that you're talking about? Is that, but I believe all your intention. I work with my dog, and I've like I said, I've been doing a lot of yoga studies and things for so many years. I'm totally in alignment with what you're saying. How would you see using written pictures? I do paintings.
Well, I think it's really about intention.
Yeah. Okay.
Written certainly works, and so does signing with the hands, and I do sign a little bit with my hands as well.
Okay. I'm Italian. I do too. But thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just posted how people can get in contact with you. I'll just put it up here now, and then we'll talk about what your course involves. So it's galactic, 4 me@gmail.com, galactic, 4 me@gmail.com. And that's how they can get in contact with you and, ask for further information or whatever that is. And I'll see that also you have, you've got paypal.me set up. Okay, so where can people find you again, Donalie? You mentioned you are on YouTube, or did you? Because I believe you're on YouTube.
I do have videos on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And you would find me on YouTube under Galactic Light Language Donalie.
Okay, awesome. So
And then I
that
also have a Facebook page with the same heading,
Galactic Light Language,
Donalie.
Donalie. Okay, awesome.
I haven't published a web page yet because I've just been too busy with
Yeah.
all my research.
You
Working on my
do.
course.
Donalie does a tremendous amount of research. I try to keep up. And I thought, darn, I got to go back because I know she updated this or that. So she does a lot of research. And, there's so many, there's seminars that come up and you think, geez, I'd love to listen to that, but I just don't have the time, or, oh, I got to come back to this one. Well, I know that she, you can't possibly listen to all the seminars and get all the information. But Donalie is a little bit of a researcher as well, which is, not my thing, but that's
Right
good that
now,
there's people.
This is the
Oh
size
my
of my
goodness.
course.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not including the charts.
But we should let people know
So
that,
it is big.
it can be intimidating looking at a volume like that. So you don't need to okay, where do I need to go? Do I go, guided? Does it here? Is it physical, emotional? What's the priority? So we can work with it any way that we want to.
And keep in mind, there's nothing here that you have to memorize.
No.
Yeah, can I share real quick? So yeah, I just keep mine right on my desktop as an icon. And then I have my physical, my emotional, my spiritual icons. And I just say, okay, which one of those is needed?
Oh,
as
that's a good
priority?
idea.
And because Donalie has separated the index from the module, I click on which index first, then it tells me what page to go to for that module. So it really,
very good.
it does. It looks very overwhelming when you look at my binders the same way.
That is
But
a
it's really quick.
great tip. I'm going to create icons. Thank you. It's really streamlining everything. There's so much information out there. Your brain just wants to explode at times. So simplifying is awesome. And, by having the information, then right there at our fingertips, I know that's what I need to do. So yeah, thank you for that. That's a great idea.
I should clarify too, in the physical module, it's not just about anatomy. There's also conditions in there as well.
Yes, absolutely.
With the checklist, with all the possibilities that could be contributing to that condition.
Well, and I am going to mention this. So Donalie, you were one of the major people in my life that I had called on this year with my husband, who had to go into a hospital emergency situation. And it was between you and another wonderful practitioner, but with the two of you working together differently, but, all working together, it made a huge difference. And I felt extremely supported in a hospital situation where you're extremely overwhelmed and worried, and the way that the healthcare system is right now, and having to watch, is it what you're hearing? Is that the truth? What's going on? And to decipher. Anyways, I'm extremely grateful. My husband was able to come out with just minus one toe, but he was able to come out of that situation. It's just still recovery in process. But I have no doubt, if it wasn't for you stepping in that situation, and in combination, as mentioned, with this other person, there could have been different results, not good ones. So I really, really appreciate you stepping in. And that was just that one time. So we all, that's the beauty of connecting with people we're in alignment with, that we feel we can trust. Trust is so extremely important these times, as there's so many ways that we can not trust the system information we're receiving. I know I feel that way. So anyways, Donalie, I appreciate you. And is there anything else that you want to mention about anything at all?
Just that the course is never finished.
No.
And so, you will be getting updates with all the new material. And what I do is I integrate all the new information into the main course, and I send you the whole course, the whole brand new course, the new version, as well as an update sheet that just gives you an alert of what is new.
Okay. Well,
So you
and
don't have to be, getting pieces of paper to try and incorporate with what you already have. It's all done for you.
yeah, and like what Jill's done, which I'm going to do after this call, is create these icons and just have it right there handy. So, okay, so let's talk about the program. What is the cost? Canadian, American, and our poor Canadians, but that's just the way it is. Our dollar is just not happy. But what is that? And I know you, again, I'm just going to say you provide so much value that we don't have time to get to. I don't have time to research. You're listening, you're updating, and it's continual. So what is the price here that you are offering for this galactic light language?
The course is $11.50 Canadian and $8.80 US.
Yeah. $8.80 US. I'm going to move to the States. That's it. So yeah, awesome, and tremendous value considering what other programs are out there and what they're charging and what support they get, because you are there to support. Now, people want to have a one-to-one session with you. So they've got the material, but they want a one-to-one session with you. What do you charge for your one-to-one session?
I'm now charging 130 Canadian and 110 US.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, you get an hour session. And I usually put in at least an hour ahead of time doing research to figure out exactly what you need. Sometimes even 2 hours.
Well, and
research.
when I went through that with my husband, I didn't realize, Donalie, that you had spent all this time prior to even doing the work. Like, I didn't recognize that. So again, yeah, I think you go over, above and beyond, but that's how you do it. And I appreciate
Well, you've
that.
got to keep it affordable.
You do. And people have to recognize the value. And as light workers, and I've been so much of myself over the years is not giving the value because we're not told that we have value. And of course, we could go down that rabbit hole as light workers from, well, I know, as we know, previous lifetimes, etc. So yeah, great value. And you also have it set up so they can do an e-transfer to your galactic for me, the number 4 me at gmail.com, or you have it set up as a PayPal too, which is good. I'm just going to put
Yes,
that
so
in.
PayPal for outside of Canada and
Yeah.
e-transfer within Canada.
Yeah, that makes sense because PayPal does. Yeah,
They're taking a pretty good chunk nowadays.
they sure are. And there's been all that. I haven't had personal issues with PayPal, but I've noticed that, that they definitely do also take they continually take off a little bit more all the time. So that's great. Okay, any last thoughts before we end the call? No?
I didn't really speak much on the spiritual
Oh, go ahead. Yes.
module. So that is about our spiritual growth and our working on our process towards awakening. And so that includes working with DNA as well as chakras in the body and lots of different activations and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. And I know I have used your material for different teleseminars that I've been in, and it's just been coming in really, I really appreciate it. So yeah, thank you. And anything else? We covered off.
Maylene?
Hi, I'm not sure if you covered this or I might have missed it. Is the program self-paced or does the class start at a certain date?
I do not teach live anymore because the course is so big.
Okay.
I found it was impossible to get a group of people together frequently to get it all in. It was just impossible. So it is self-directed learning. Thank you for asking that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and again, you can muscle test it, should I go here first, or what that is. So, and that's all that, we all do that. So it really does take a lot of that overwhelming, where do I go? So not to get worried about, hung up about that.
Yeah, there's a couple ways to go at it. When a client comes to you, they usually have something they want addressed. So that's going to get you started. If somebody wants a complete assessment of their entire body, that's when you use these checklist pages to figure out the light score of all the parts of the body. Otherwise, you just go by what they're needing help with. So, it could fall into any of those categories. Yes, Sherry.
Donalie, thanks. So you did say that you don't have to speak light language, which I do not, but I can use the body code. So basically I should be able to pick up these manuals and just douse and figure out where I need to go and clear that way. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So, how does light language, how do you know if what I'm hearing about light language is you have no idea that you're going to even be gifted with light language. Is that correct?
That's right. And it came to me spontaneously. So I can't really do a whole lot in regards to preparing a person to speak it. I will say, I do know of a couple others who speak it. And I had a friend that took the course and she walked away not being able to speak it.
Okay.
So, I don't know what the
It just depends, right?
guiding factor is. That helps. I do have an activation in my course.
Oh, you do?
for it.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
But I can't guarantee that it will work.
Okay. That's fair.
And I don't know what the it factor is for it. I have no idea.
Mhm.
All I can say is before I got the gift, I knew something was coming. I'd been told years before that something would be coming. I had done, I had a psychic tell me that I was always meant to be a healer and that I would be teaching. And before I left nursing, I taught the nursing course. And I thought, well, that must be what she was talking about. I realizing that had nothing to do with what was being planned.
Right. Sure. Sure. So if you're so I'm a body code user with many other modalities. So are you saying that this kind of will push that aside, or are you using them in conjunction?
Oh,
Do
you can
know?
use other modalities with it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. So yes, you can integrate.
So you can integrate them.
Modalities.
Great.
Yeah, quite
Okay.
easily. Like I say, I've had a lot of different modalities that I've trained in as well.
Okay. Great.
And some of those I'm working on.
Very good. Okay.
Sherry,
Yes.
you know what I often do too is it in the body code? Is it in galactic light language?
right.
Like we
Which
all do.
I do that as well, and I have a very nice big large binder as well, Donalie.
Okay.
But funny thing is that I'm not using it any longer, really, because I am really clearing with intention more so than anything else. But there are some things that I feel like maybe I'm not drilling down far enough. And that's why I'm feeling like your charts would help me drill down a little further than I'm going. So
Yes, like I say, the emotional module has the most charts, and those charts are invaluable for identifying specific emotions.
right. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Okay, I think that's about it. And I'll be posting this in the various groups and sending you, Donalie, your own replay of this. So thanks, you guys. I enjoyed that. And you're welcome to join us on the Light Language Facebook group. I think Diane said she's going to set up something. Was it December the 6th? Is that what you said?
No, I was I was gonna do 12/12,
Oh, 12/12,
which is a
right.
Monday at noon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm feeling the 12s. It's interesting. 12/12 has been coming in my vision a lot. So yeah, it
Okay.
just.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Donalie. Thanks everybody for doing this. I love our group, Brenda and Jill. I like your group too.
Thank you, Donalie. And gosh, if you have any questions, just email her. Very approachable, trustworthy, absolutely, which we need in these times desperately. So thank you everyone for coming in, and feel free to share the video and any information. Again, you can contact Donalie at galacticforme@gmail.com. Okay.
Thank you,
That's
Brenda.
it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was fun. Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye all. Nice
Bye
meeting you
now.
all. Bye.
Bye.